Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2016. Don't lock her up. That's where we are this morning. I guess I'm not sure whether it rises to the level of the big announcement of the morning yet or not. It's a little bit new, but I guess Donald Trump has decided in his benevolence. I don't think it's necessarily up to him, but hey, who knows how things are going to go in the new American era, whatever that might mean. But apparently in his benevolence, he has decided, one, that he will not be pursuing an investigation into Hillary Clinton and her emails and the Clinton Foundation post-election. After all, gee whiz, maybe because there's nothing there and he knew that it would look ridiculous in the end. And of course, there's pushback from the process perspective out there, people noting it's not actually usually up to the president to make those decisions, but hey, it may be in his administration, or maybe not, or maybe he knows very well that they're not going to come to any kind of usable conclusion. So he'll say, I don't want this investigation to go any further. Then he'll say, I couldn't, in good, the good government sense. It turns out I can't simply, this is my preference, but I can't simply order the authorities at the FBI and elsewhere in the Department of Justice to drop the issue, nor can I order the Congress to stop investigating. They can if they wish. I don't think they'll find anything. And then when they don't find anything, he'll say, see, I told you there was nothing and you should have taken my advice the first time, but okay, now it's official. It's all over. We got nothing. But he also, I guess Kellyanne Conway, looking for a way to just put an extra zing in there, says, yes, it's actually all about helping Hillary Clinton, you remember, the sickly, dying Hillary Clinton, helping her heal after the election. You know, she always had to be at home sleeping all the time. So she says that Trump's relieving her of this additional burden of facing prison as he promised, because he's a great guy, and because really it's his responsibility as president-elect to just try and not only help heal the country, but help her in particular. Look, she lost the election. That was all he ever really wanted out of it. And so now she gets to heal. Isn't that? It's a good trick. Yeah. And it'll probably work, since the investigations weren't going anywhere. Anyway, let's see. Well, let's see. We've got that. We are once again, unfortunately, without Greg Dworkin this morning. He's still helping people heal, but people who are actually sick and for whom medicine will make a significant difference. And so, we miss him, but we won't see him again until after Thanksgiving, I guess. But wish him a good break, and he'll need it after working so hard all this additional time in the hospital, pulling those patients through. He tells me, by the way, those of you who might be concerned about what his patients might be going through, I don't really know what the medical condition is, but I am assured that those serious and the parents are super worried. It's all going to be okay. And as much of the job now is, of course, administering the medicine as sort of ministering to the parents and explaining everything and how the healing process is going to go, but that it will go. So good news there is, serious illness, yes, but well on the way to recovery, sure, thanks to Dr. Greg. So thanks a lot, Greg. We'll miss you, but we'll catch up with you after the Thanksgiving break. What have we got instead? As it happens, plenty of things continue to happen. It's very weird. I don't really know why this goes on. And you know how it is. I'm a big advocate of the holiday creep, not Donald Trump. I mean, the creep of the holiday forward in the week. Thursday, of course, Thanksgiving Day. Many places closing up early or closing entirely, like my kids' schools. On Wednesday, to allow for travel to the Thanksgiving festivities. And, of course, most of the day today in those places will be spent. Well, it's been a long time since I was in somebody else's office and using computers of their choice. Back in the day when that was last the case, that would mean playing. This will give you an idea of how long it's been since I've been in somebody else's formal office setting. Playing Minesweeper, waiting for the day to end. Geez, it's almost time for us to get the hell out of here for tomorrow, which is a day off. So, you know, it is wasting the last hour or so looking at the clock saying, I don't want to start anything new because I'm not going to get that done. And I've finished up all the details that really need to be finished before we take the break, but to hell with attacking that pile of new projects. Anyway, speaking of attacking a pile of new projects, let's take a look at what we've got in pocket available to us, things we put aside in the last couple of days, and reach back a little further, make sure that we fill in the blanks on what's going on in and around American politics. Let's see. By the way, let me take a moment to promote again, as I did in this morning's Daily Coast Radio is Live post, the website. Another brilliant creation of a fantastic online digital operative, if you will, Matt Ortega, who created this site and made creative use of the, what do you call them, top-level domain, like using either .com or .us. What is that? Do I have that right? I don't know. I don't remember the technical terminology there, but you know, there are very many domains, the top-level domains that you can go with, and of course, outside of the U.S., there's all the country-coded ones, and they don't sometimes get a whole lot of use, and so there are a lot of different ones available. And he made great use of this one, of course, pointing out it was becoming difficult to collect in one place all of the very recent examples of Donald Trump's corruption. And, of course, he came to the conclusion that Donald Trump was, in online parlance, corrupt AF. That would be, of course, corrupt as F word. And it doesn't work that well on the radio, does it? But anyway, apparently that's a domain level that's available to you, the .af. I had no idea. I don't know what that's. Is that Afghanistan, maybe? I don't know. It's probably not using a lot of domain names in Afghanistan these days. They're busy with a few other things, so maybe that's what he grabbed. And so he's got corrupt.af, which is a great idea, and it's understandable, and it's visceral, and it's still radio friendly, so I thought it was great. And of course he put together a great collection of things and started passing out that URL, and I wanted to help out, so I've been putting together I use it as a tag for everything. You should too. Every time there's a hint of Donald Trump corruption, you should absolutely add to your tweets, and the way to do it and have it linked, you know, put in a little http:// and then just corrupt.af. And it'll show up in the tweets as just corrupt.af, and everybody will get the point if you just say Donald Trump is corrupt AF. He's never correct AF. Donald Trump is corrupt AF, and then put in the URL, and everybody gets the point. So I don't know. He's really good at those things. Wanted to be able to credit him for that work. I spread it around a lot. That's fun for me, but he did the actual work. Anyway, here we are now. We have our own thing. We don't just have to talk about Matt Ortega's thing. Daily Coast Radio is, in fact, live now, as it has been for the past 10 minutes. Thanks, Bill, once again for your morning tweet. Daily Coast Radio is live now, but Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, will cancel the show if you don't promise to keep it off the record. That is the other big story of the day. I think that one will last. Whew. And this one has background. Yesterday, was it, the Donald summoned to his Trump Tower offices, I guess. How would we characterize this group? Top executives and on-air personalities from most of the cable news networks and broadcast news networks. I read about it, of course, and we discussed it. We didn't discuss it, you and I, but separately. We all discussed it in our other circles last night, and I never did put aside one particular article about it, though I'm certain we can fish one out. Page 1 of the Times today. Thank you. Page 1 of the Times today is Emoluments story. Thanks, Armando, for bringing that up. That won't do me any good. We should discuss it. I'll take any crutch I can get today, Armando. So yeah, Emoluments, as predicted, and it was a pretty good one, pretty good prediction. I mean, this was a great example of getting the news a day early. Armando told you last week, and I think it was even midweek, Thursday. That's the word to look for, and now everybody's on it. I mean, in hindsight, it's obvious AF, but it wasn't hindsight for Armando. So yeah, we'll definitely discuss that today. Front page of the Times, though, doesn't help me any because I can't read the Times, and we'll get it. Don't worry about it. But now I'm scanning around for some journalistic coverage of the meeting as between Donald Trump and the heads of these networks at Trump Tower. The upshot of it is there was an off-the-record meeting between the heads of the nets and the on-air talking heads of some renown. Chuck Todd was there. Quite a few others were there, but in addition, the execs were there. Anyway, I'm answering some other correspondence at the same time. This is a tough thing to do, but anyway, so they showed up for this off-the-record meeting, which is an interesting thing to get them to agree to in the first place, and basically, we now have because it's off the record, we have two different stories about what actually happened there. Here is, Ramnick of the New Yorker, according to the New York Post. Thanks, Armando. We'll bring those in. You know what? If you feel like chiming in, Armando, you can certainly join in the discussion of these things. Won't lead me anywhere I'm not willing to go. At the moment, though, I have Mark Sumner's summation of it from the front page yesterday. Trump invites network executives, anchors, and reporters to I got a lot of F words today. Effing firing squad. That was the way the New York Post put it yesterday. And Post is what it is. But it's the more, these days, I think, is it the more right-leaning of the two tabloids, or is the Daily News the more right-leaning of the two? I can't even recall anymore. I don't read either of those either. I do read the New York Times. I just don't subscribe to it. Anyway, look at Mark's summation of it here. Network executives and anchors who went for an off-the-record meeting with Donald Trump Monday afternoon were apparently told they'd be discussing press access during the Trump administration. Instead, Donald Trump delivered a screaming harangue aimed at execs, anchors, reporters, and pictures. That is to say, pictures that he doesn't like. And before I get too much further into Mark's description of it, I will note for the record, I seem to recall that when President Obama invited people to, and in particular, I'm thinking of bloggers, but maybe it's different. Maybe it's different with professional journalists. But when he invited people for off-the-record discussions, it was rather hotly criticized by the professional journalists who found out about it, that this sort of thing should never have been off the record, and of course lots of opportunity for blogger bashing. But then of course they went to their own off the record discussion. Although I can understand if the discussion was in fact supposed to be about press access, mechanics, I could see keeping that off the record. But Donald Trump is a slippery fellow. And I don't know whether that's something you should agree to with him. Anyway, the New York Post's description via Mark Sumner's post yesterday has this poll quote from the Post's description. It was like a effing firing squad, one source said of the meeting. Trump started with CNN President Jeff Zucker and said, "I hate your network. Everyone at CNN is a liar and you should be ashamed." He tells it like it is. Trump kept saying, "We're in a room full of liars. The deceitful, dishonest media who got it all wrong," the source said. He addressed everyone in the room, calling the media dishonest, deceitful liars. Trump didn't say NBC reporter Katie Tur by name, but talked about a female correspondent who got it wrong. Trump also complained about photos used by NBC, which he found unflattering. Asked about the meeting, Kellyanne Conway said the reports of a Trump tirade weren't true, that's her job to say that, and closed her statement with this fine reassurance for freedom of speech. "By the way, it's an off-the-record meeting, so whoever said that and mischaracterized it should think twice." Although I would bet you almost anything that John Barron had pretty much the same thing to say about it. Who leaked the comments of the meeting? HUD Secretary Julian Castro has an idea. Let's see. He's tweeted, "Total power play by Trump to make these media folks look like children getting their scolding." He probably leaked it, and I think he's probably right. It wasn't just that Trump invited them to be yelled at, he invited them to be humiliated so that he could then leak the news about how he kicked them in the balls and made them like it. That's Mark's conclusion, and I'm in pretty much the same place. So that was the big story of yesterday. The story of the day today is that the New York Times is next up on the chopping block, but that the man himself, Donald Trump, says he has canceled the meeting with the New York Times because the New York Times is changing the terms, he says, under which they are willing to meet with him. The Times says, "No, we're not. We are willing to meet under the same terms as already agreed upon. It's just basically that you are now probably angry at our coverage of you yesterday, exposing the many, many ways in which you are, as we started today, corrupt AF." So, they did some good work in uncovering a lot of, well, we'll call it foreign intrigue for the moment, and lots to report on that front too. But Armando is here to discuss that and a few other items too. Did you just send me the Emoluments article? Is that what that was?
Yeah, I gave you all the text. It's in a DM I sent you.
Yeah, take a look. Oh my God, I'm going to use Twitter.
Yeah,
okay.
It's long, and unfortunately I didn't cut it right. But if you can imagine yourself reading the actual paper with all the things in the middle, you can see the text.
Okay.
I'm also going to tweet out a 13-page analysis of the applicability of the Emoluments Clause to the presidency that was prepared during Obama's presidency, or the transition period, because of the Nobel Peace Prize thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's long and it's detailed, but the highlights are basically that the Emoluments Clause applies to the president.
Yeah. I mean, that was...
It should. I mean, by its plain text, no person holding any office of profit or trust, unless we're taking the position that doesn't... that the president doesn't have that position is kind of crazy.
You know what, though? He will argue it, and he'll say, it's not a position of profit. I'm taking $1. It's symbolic. I'm not profiting. He'll say, I could have made much more profit staying private. I'm losing money. This is not a position of profit. Okay, it says, or trust.
Yeah, well, okay, whatever. I mean, it pretty clearly does. Now, I had sent you last week some links to the enabling legislation on it, and my own view is that it actually provides an avenue for the Attorney General, good luck with that, to bring a civil action against any public officer on that point.
Yes, well, you know how that goes.
Well, in theory, there should be a special prosecutor on this.
Yes. That's what you do when you run into a situation exactly like this. But, gosh, don't we have special prosecutor fatigue in this country? Let's just heal. Let's look forward. I don't know. The chances of getting a special prosecutor, probably depend largely on what starts happening as we approach midterms. But he's got 2 years.
Now, let's look at what the basis of such an investigation would be. I would use the words of the president-elect himself who says indeed that he has, and everybody knows that he had foreign interests.
Yes.
That are dependent on foreign governments.
I was elected with that in mind. Everybody knew that. I made it very clear.
Yeah, I mean, let's quote him. Here's his quote. His very words are scream that we need a special prosecutor. Prior to the election, it was well known that I have interests in properties all over the world. Only the crooked media makes this a big deal. Actually, the Constitution makes this a big deal, yes, Mr. President-elect. The Constitution of the United
States. That's all.
It basically prohibits you from having an ability or a need to curry foreign favor for your personal interests. That's its purpose.
Or to that's the purpose of the Emoluments Clause. True, it's got a mirror image, which is just, I guess, one of the governing mores by which we guide ourselves. That you should also not leverage the military might and foreign influence of the United States government on behalf of your personal holdings. But you can leverage it on behalf of other people's personal holdings.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why the figure of the blind trust was a creation for presidents. Because even, the most modest of presidents would have holdings, stock holdings, whatever, which could indeed impact their thinking. Like if you have a stock in a company that's dependent on, let's say, arms sales to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if that would be Lockheed or one of those other defense industry companies.
Anybody. Scholastic at this point. Okay.
Right. Whoever it is. So, but the idea being that you can't know that you have it, therefore whatever decision you make on selling arms to the Saudis is not going to impact your thought on that, and you, because of that, that's why you need a blind trust. Here it's even more pronounced. The example that we're all looking to, and the story's gone back and forth, but the threat is there no matter what, and that had to do with the Trump Tower Buenos Aires project in Argentina. And of course the rumor was, or the half-joking reporting, however you want to put it, was that Trump brought it up to the president of Argentina in their first call. Let's assume that's not true. But let's assume that he still wants to build Trump Tower Buenos Aires. And he needs approvals from the Argentine government. Now, I don't know if the Argentine national government can tell the Buenos Aires municipal government. That's beyond my knowledge. But let's suppose he can. What if Argentina wants something and the president elect, when president, exchanges that favor for the permits that he would need to build Trump Tower? That's exactly why you have this Emoluments Clause issue. That's why you have these conflicts of interest rules. And it really goes to, frankly, a story that I'm sure will be a part of your coverage today, which is the failure of the media. Now, we brought this up. You brought it up. I brought it up. A lot of people brought it up, but the mainstream media never did. And I'm adopting mainstream media because that seems to work in cowing them. So I'm urging all progressives to adopt that to see if it gets them to lean back to being somewhat normal. But the Clinton Foundation accepted donations from countries, right? And that was a big to-do at the time. And frankly, I thought, and I said it, and I don't know if you agreed with me, but I think if you didn't think it was unreasonable that in fact if Hillary Clinton became president, the Clinton Foundation would have to shut down. I just didn't see, or basically not accept any foreign donations. But even then, I still think it created conflict situations, appearance issues. Now, of course, it's not through their personal gain; it's for a charity.
Yeah.
But a president has to be, frankly, above any reproach in that sense. You can't have a situation where a $10 million donor to the Clinton Foundation is intricately involved in decision-making by our government. that's why it wasn't going to work as president. I thought state less so, because at the end of the day, the decision maker is the president, and you really can't buy off the Secretary of State without buying off the president, in my view. I think we talked about that too.
Yeah.
But as president, I just thought it was something that you couldn't have. More so when it's your personal gain. The president-elect has foreign interests in Saudi Arabia. He created 6 companies in Saudi Arabia while running for president, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, no more the excuse of, he didn't know that was eventually going to become a reality. He was this was during the campaign.
His personal investments are indebted to the Bank of China and Deutsche Bank, 2 foreign banks.
Yeah. One state-owned.
He has properties in Scotland, and he's accused already of asking Nigel Farage to lobby against wind farms, which, as you know, he has a long-running battle in Scotland against the wind farms that are adjacent to his property.
Yeah, he doesn't like the look. It ruins the golfing vistas.
Whatever personal reason he has. Right there, I mean, it's impossible for this to be okay. Not that means it's going to stop, because I have no confidence both in the media, frankly, or the electorate. The electorate has proven that my lack of confidence in them is well earned based on this election. Not the entirety of the electorate. Of course, Hillary Clinton's going to win by nearly 3 million votes when all the votes are counted. But given our electoral college and given our the existence of a Senate, which is a constitutional gerrymander, and actual gerrymandering within the states, we're going to have to deal with the electorate that we have, not the one we wish we had. But nonetheless, at the very least, let's try to figure out this emoluments issue. And how it works. Now, the story I've sent you is from Adam Liptak, and I don't know when you'll get a chance to read it, if you think you want to. But it really is the issue that I think is one that even this supine media can grasp and actually press him on. Of course, he'll yell at them, as he did. And there's your segue back to the story you were talking about first, but they need to stand up to him.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's happening at the lower levels, and the line reporters are documenting the atrocities, I think, with reasonable diligence. But at the top levels, apparently, it's still time to meet with Donald Trump and get dressed down. And now I don't know whether I'd love to know whether the folks at that meeting are spending the day, like licking their wounds and trying to say, well, what can we do to appease the guy? Or are they saying we need to grow a spine and fight back? This is what it's going to be like.
It's not encouraging. If you look at the Remnick article, I didn't send you the link, but if you look for David Remnick, New York, or Trump, you probably can find it. He quotes one of the participants who says he was... First of all, he said something that's amazing, which is, the last 2 weeks of the campaign were all about how awful Donald Trump was. That must have been a different campaign than the one I was watching, but fine. But afterwards, he was, his words were, effing pissed at being dressed down. But in a few days, he'll get over it and go back to doing his job, which is, catering to Trump, apparently.
Well, I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope that things change dramatically. These guys, like everybody, they're creatures of habit. They know that whatever it is they've been doing has been working in terms of buttering their bread, and I imagine that will continue until they begin to go hungry. So I don't imagine that there will be a dramatic shift in the way things are covered. You'd think there would be, but they've proven time and again that they're really pretty formulaic.
Right. I mean, I'll give the New York Times credit today. They're a week late. As you noted at the top of this, I mentioned this last week. And this story was out there, frankly, during the campaign. This should have been covered during the campaign. consider
Yes, sure.
the coverage, David, of what was going to happen to the Clinton Foundation. That was a pretty big story. It got covered a ton.
I attribute a lot of it to, the press belief that I think a lot of people shared, that with limited time, cover the one that's likely to be president.
That's not acceptable, because look what happens.
Now, right?
The one you don't want gets elected.
Yes, I mean, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know how I would regard it. I don't know exactly how to express my feelings about it, because I understand, but I also think, how about hire another guy, one more person who can cover the contingency of the other guy being president, or alongside everything else, you present reasons why this other person offers no solution, or even worse than what I just reported on over here. I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to just excuse. Well, just don't do it. Just don't even cover. I don't know.
Well, again, what do you do? Look, this is going to be 4 years of this. 4 years.
Yes.
And this is just one aspect of the travesty that's about to unfold.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even getting into the issues yet. I mean, you didn't mention at the top, I don't think, the Trump video that he released yesterday.
Yes, he did release a video. It hasn't gotten a great deal of attention just yet. The fact that it was a video release. I mean, well, quite frankly, if it had been in a cave, we all would have recognized exactly what this was. But It wasn't. It was in Trump Tower.
It was at Trump Tower. It was reading off a teleprompter. Reading badly again, by the way. But
not good.
What he said was, of course, one of the most ridiculous things, which he had said during the campaign, of course, is that for every new regulation, 2 have to be eliminated.
And they can only be 3 pages long, or maybe 140 characters. Yeah, that was like a bad 5th grade, U.S. government project. Here, what's your proposal? Well, for every new regulation, 2 have to be eliminated. How about the one that you just promulgated plus one other? That way it's easier. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, that's among the dumbest things a grown adult has ever said about what to do in government. And he's going to be the government. So that's even worse.
Not only is he going to be the government, one other thing that I think you mentioned in passing was his announcement, or the announcement from his people, via Joe Scarborough. Well, Joe Scarborough is one of his people, but also Kellyanne Conway.
That's another story. Yeah.
That Trump won't pursue email case against Hillary Clinton.
What? Yeah, I did mention it.
First of all, there's so much that's wrong with that.
Yes. Brian Boiler just, I think, summed it up nicely, but I'll let you begin.
Well, I mean, the president doesn't decide who the Justice Department investigates. Let's start with that, number one.
Yes.
Number two, it was already investigated, and she was cleared.
Many times.
It was an outrageous investigation. It never should have happened. It all stems from a bureaucratic turf war between the intelligence community and the State Department that sent a security referral to the FBI, who was given this opportunity to let their crazy minds work. Then, of course, the FBI director compounded all this with his outrageous behavior at the end of the campaign and in the middle of the campaign. Yeah. But nonetheless, the end result was it was done. It's over.
Yes.
To reopen it, you need new evidence. You cannot decide because you don't like somebody that I'm going to reopen an investigation. That's not how it works. That, frankly, is ex post facto in many ways.
That's not
rather, not ex post facto, bill of attainder. This is very bill of attainder territory. And it's frankly why no one should ever behave in the way Trump did, saying, I'm going to name a special prosecutor. You can't do that. Or you can, but it's still unconstitutional.
That all falls under the umbrella for both Trump himself, who doesn't really, I don't think, at bottom understand this, and his supporters, who I am more certain do not understand this. This all falls under the umbrella of, well, if we could only run government like a business where what the CEO says goes and bylaws be damned, and that's not by the way, how businesses actually operate either. But everybody has that impression. And this whole, it fits into the whole, he tells it like it is, he gets things done persona. He just says, I'm going to do it, despite the fact that there's no way in hell you either should or could, or certainly shouldn't be permitted to under the Constitution, provided somebody enforces it. But again, one of the things that the Constitution is not, in addition to a suicide pact, is a self-enforcing document. It all comes down to, we all actually have to say, not only is that wrong, but you're going to pay for it. And we're missing the pay for it stage right now. But yes, this was all acceptable to him and his fans because they never understood how government worked. That was part of what their anger was really about. And so it was a huge applause line to say, even if there is some kind of stupid bureaucratic rule, I'm such an alpha male and such a CEO, I'm just going to sweep that aside. In my administration, what I say will go. Unless, of course, somebody steps in to save me from myself, in which case I will say, oh, yeah, all right, well, in that case, yeah, I can't do everything. Gosh. But, yeah, on a number of levels, this thing was ludicrous, not the least of which being it's not supposed to be up to you. To the extent that it is up to you, that's a failing of the system.
That's a dictatorship.
Yeah. And as, let me see, where Brian Boiler, I mentioned, I thought, summed it up nicely, and I retweeted if I can grab it here. It's bad for a president-elect to boast about sparing someone from jail because in doing so he is claiming false dominion over that power. It's an abstract problem, and it's not one that's likely to be chanted at a Trump rally, or for that matter at a Clinton rally, if there ever was such a thing again. But it's true.
There won't be.
In addition to it being flat wrong for a president to interfere in such things, it's a calculated move designed to make his supporters think that it really was up to him before they find out that it isn't. And, if he can diffuse the thing or it has information that it's likely that the FBI and an independent DOJ, if there again ever was such a thing again, wouldn't find any basis for proceeding anyway, then he diffuses it. He doesn't look silly to his fans later on, and he doesn't have to even try to muscle a continuing investigation past a reluctant FBI. He knows that's going to be the outcome, and so preemptively he says, well, I'll tell you what, we shouldn't do it. We should not pursue it. But you said it. I know, but for reasons of benevolence, whatever crap I can come up with, we really shouldn't do it, which is just a way of saying, eventually, even if I attempted to deliver on this promise, I guess, short of just smashing the Constitution to bits and proceeding with it, I was going to find out from the FBI, there's nothing. We can't do anything. This is going nowhere. So rather than shrug then and say, I guess I was wrong, I do this now and say, I think for the best, for the good of the country, we'll just not pursue this thing. And then, lo and behold, it will not be pursued because there was nothing to pursue and the FBI was never going to do anything anyway. But instead, it now looks like he, A, is a magnanimous guy, and 2, it will be understood by his fans that this was, as he promised, part and parcel of his power as president. He just chose to waive it. And who knows what awful things that would lead to later on. Okay. So, what else is new? I have a couple other notes here, by the way. You mentioned his consulting with or discussing with Scarborough, or did he release his which part of the massive tangle of effed up ideas was it that he? Oh yes, was it the discussion of the off the record meeting with the news people that he leaked to Scarborough or talked with?
No, he actually said breaking news on Morning
right.
Joe regarding
Clinton
investigations.
Exactly the thing I was just talking about.
Yes, that was. I don't
that's
think
how confused I am.
I don't think he's had any words about.
But
about that.
I mentioned that only because it also now comes to light that the relationship between Trump and Scarborough has more to it, more depth.
Yeah, it's
to
a little
it.
more Sean Hannity than just Scarborough wanted people to know.
Right, as it turns out. So Hunter covered this one on the front page at Daily Kos. This is twice I'm now talking about something on the front page at Daily Kos. That's amazing, but even without Joan here. But MSNBC host Joe Scarborough has been, quote, advising Trump behind the scenes. What? When? And by the way, this is the worst picture I've ever seen of Mika illustrating this. So she has every right. She needs to talk to Donald Trump about how to complain about that. It's just a bad angle and a bad freeze frame for her. But anyway, as Hunter puts it here, oh, national news, quote unquote news media, what the hell are you even for? So the New York Times, another reason to be angry with them and not meet with them today, I guess, reported on the 19th, was that Sunday? I've lost track of time. Saturday, I think, worse. Reported that Trump still maintains the routine that sustained him during the campaign. No surprise to us there. He is a creature of habit there, which includes often seeking out advice from MSNBC host Joe Scarborough. Does that mean during the campaign, like I'm maintaining my routine as I did during the campaign, talking to...
That's what it means.
So seeking out advice... I mean, that is another trick, a personal trick of Donald Trump's. Every account I've read of people having, whether good relationship, bad relationship, whatever, meetings with Donald Trump is one of the ways that he kind of his Jedi mind trick when he's meeting with you, especially if you're adversaries, actually, but in almost any case, is he solicits advice from you, even if you're an adversary. But whoever you are, he will solicit advice from you, and the idea is to get you to say, "Wow, important guy Donald Trump is asking me for advice. I'm important to him. I can help guide this, this big player here if I give good advice." And it puts people off their guard. It puts them in a different mode. So there's a grain of salt to be taken with I'm asking for advice about things. But this appears to be, this report appears to detail that he was essentially an informal advisor / consultant with him throughout the campaign, which he denied vehemently and was furious anytime anybody would even suggest that he was on Trump's side or that he was had some kind of pro-Trump bias. That made him furious. He was insisting he was a never Trumper, and he's advising Trump. Then again, who knows? I mean, it said that that post-election, President Obama has been trying to cultivate a relationship with him for a different purpose, but for the purpose of steadying the hand that's going to take the tiller for the good of the country, I guess. But anyway,
also, I mean, to the president's credit, our real president, our current president,
yes,
there is a certain malleability about Trump that if you flatter him, he'll listen to you.
That is true. You can do that.
And the president, the real president, our president, understands that. And I suspect that the president's goal is to do what he can to protect the Affordable Care Act. And he had some gains on that because, the pre-existing condition rule, you really can't stand that up without having, frankly, the rest of the Affordable Care Act. So it's kind of interesting to see how that plays out. A couple things on Joe Scarborough. One thing. What's most fascinating to me about the Scarborough-Trump thing is Donald Trump tweeted out an absolutely vile attack. And I say this as someone who despises Joe and Mika. But it was an absolutely vile attack on Mika for being unstable and hysterical. It was sexist. It was awful. And then insinuating that he had secrets about their romantic relationship,
yes.
Joe and Mika's romantic relationship. Intimating that, frankly, Joe was a homewrecker and broke up Mika's marriage.
I had forgotten about that one because I care so little for the two of them.
I agree with you, but I'm just amazed that then Joe goes and wants to be an advisor to a guy who did that. What kind of person are you?
I don't know. I mean, this is one of Trump's Jedi mind tricks, and he's very good at it. I don't understand how it keeps happening, but people that he absolutely dumps on come back. He invites them in and says, "I need your advice." No matter what he does to them, he's been forcing Chris Christie to get him Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the guy's like crawling back to Bedminster to meet with him at this stupid golf course White House. The thing that he's got set up. Did you see with the flag that's stuck outside
that's
the
portico?
Weirdest
thing too. It's not even a house he owns in New Jersey. It's a golf club. He's meeting at a golf club.
I don't know. I got no idea. I don't know why.
Why doesn't he go to Mar-a-Lago? At least he pretends to own that.
I think
that's also a club too. But.
Yes, but to be honest, I guess my guess on that, this is not a hugely important point, but my guess is it's columns and a portico. That's the photo he wants. Columns.
That is amazing.
And by the way, remember that this was a disgusting fascistic display when they decided, let's decorate the stage in Denver with columns for the acceptance speech. Look at this guy. He's setting himself up as Roman emperor. No, he's not. He's invoking, Federalist era architecture for a reason. Founding fathers. Why are you guys out there? Why are you protesting teabaggers in tricorn hats? These guys are anachronistic. What? No, they're trying to invoke a certain... Okay, so fine. But I think that's what he wants, is he wants a portico, doorway, flags, columns. It's the closest thing he owns currently to a West Wing set. So that's what he's, I think, is doing with it. I don't know why I don't know. I'm not sure why he did all the things he did. But anyway, he beats the crap. I mean, he's beating the crap out of, beat the crap out of Mitt Romney, summons him to Bedminster, dumps on Chris Christie, summons him to Bedminster, one after the other. There's 100 of these.
And they say, thank you, keep hitting me. It's unbelievable.
I don't know, it seems to work.
It is. It's pathetic, frankly.
Even during the early parts of the campaign when we read stories about people he owed money to who were furious, and he would then summon them for a meeting, and they thought, okay, this is some kind of settlement negotiation. They would go, and he'd beat the crap out of them there. But they almost all had a little story about how he then solicited some advice from them. And that they gave it like, well, maybe this will change things. We're adversaries right now, but maybe this is an olive branch, and it's just a technique that he uses. And the real answer is advice. My advice is go F yourself. Jump out the goddamn window. That's my advice to you. But then, that doesn't do you any good either. So,
and while we've been talking, a news story, Farage reports that the Trump Foundation tells the IRS it broke the self-dealing rules in 2015. And also did so in the past without reporting it.
What? I missed the very beginning of this. This is
the IRS, Donald Trump Foundation.
Yes.
Admitted to the Internal Revenue Service that it broke the self-dealing rules.
It did. In
2015, and also previous to that without telling anybody. That's all about the Tim Tebow jersey and all that
there you
stuff.
go. So Farage
and the
was
6-foot portrait and all that crazy nonsense. And paying the Palm Beach police.
Oh yeah, was that something you said was now being reported this morning? Is that where that?
Well, it's part of it. It's been reported. If you look at Farage about 11 minutes ago, he has a story in the Washington Post. Of course, that's who he writes for. And in the scheme of things, it's a big deal. But, geez, I do want to circle back to your point about people kissing up to him. Mm-hmm. I think the one thing that's the miscalculation on that, it's nice to be close to power. In a sense, it gives it's a human frailty that people want to be close to power.
Yeah,
but I'm absolutely convinced, and you may disagree with me, but I'm absolutely convinced that the Trump presidency is going to be an unmitigated disaster for the country. He doesn't know what he's doing, number one. Mm-hmm. You didn't even mention something he did last night, which was a complete breach of diplomatic protocol when he told the British that they should appoint Nigel Farage as the ambassador to the United States.
I haven't gotten to that. That's true. And I'll put that. I have a long list of notes. That's a good one because I have another enormous breach of diplomatic protocol to do too. But yeah.
But I'm just saying, this is just we're 2 weeks into this. Wait till things start going wrong, which they will. Even if he was the greatest president, things go wrong.
Yes.
And he's not going to be the greatest president. He's going to probably be the worst.
Very likely.
It's going to be
total
like
BS.
Nothing we've ever seen.
Yeah, he's corrupt AF. That's the site. Everybody keep track of that. And seriously, that's a handy reference to have at your fingertips. Corrupt.af, and if it works, that'll be the repository for all these stories, so that you can tell your unbelieving relatives that, and they can look at it and say it's all lies.
Yeah. I'm just saying, so at the end of the day, you're going to be associated with what I believe will be the most disastrous presidency in the history of the country. And I say that knowing George W. Bush was president just a decade ago.
Yeah. I mean,
I really believe that. There's going to be a war with Iran. It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
He's going to implement Republican ideas on domestic policy, which we know are disastrous because we suffer through them every time they're implemented. There's this crazy idea, and I don't know if you've heard it, that he's going to have a 10% across-the-board cut in federal employees, except for Defense Department. Have you heard that one?
No. Tell me again.
10% cut in all the departments of the federal government. This is a pet idea of Republicans.
Okay. Are we talking about personnel or
yes,
payroll,
personnel,
top
actual
line?
employees.
Okay.
Which I don't know the exact number, but it's going to be upwards of 500,000 people losing their jobs.
Don't you mean creating new opportunities for different jobs? Thank you.
There will be no other jobs. There's the coal. They can go work in the coal mines, right? Because coal's coming back, which of course it isn't. It doesn't work that way. The world doesn't work the way Trump thinks it works. It's not a TV show. It's not a bribe a guy for a permit world for a president. That's not how it works.
Oh. So can I change my mind? He asked. Is it too late to get out of this if this isn't the way it works? Yeah, I mean, again, we're back to. I should probably find and pull out those old articles that were written by folks who said you really need to understand the real estate developer's MO to understand how he does things.
I think that's absolutely right, and that's not the real world. But by the way, he was lousy as a real estate developer too.
True. Yes, he was terrible at that, no doubt about it.
He went bankrupt 5 times.
Well, everybody
he ran a
deserves
casino business
chance.
Into the ground.
Yes, that is also difficult to do.
He wasn't good in his own world. What he was good at was making people think he was good at it, and he got a TV show that saved him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff Zucker. Good job.
Yeah. Or this was Mark Burnett.
And Mark Burnett. Well,
he should be president.
Zucker greenlit the show.
Oh yeah, right. Well, this particular show, the new reality show of running for president. Yes. By the way, I found the article you mentioned with Farenthold, and I had to mention on Twitter. I'm so old. I remember when Farenthold was called disgusting by Trump himself for insinuating what he now admits.
Yes. Great point.
Another, again, get in line,
retweet you.
But it's absolutely true. I mean, he was saying this is a disgusting, lying son of a bitch at Washington Post, and Jeff Bezos put him up to it, and this is all crap and it's lies. And now, of course, that the actual possibility that the weight of the law could be leveraged against this. He's now says, I did do that. And
of course he did that.
And of course
it was obvious he did that.
Yes, and he sets it aside as sort of it's out there like, well, the Trump Foundation now admits. I mean, even Farenthold. They have to be cautious. I understand. They now, especially with a litigious guy like Donald Trump. Although I think he's probably less able to file suits this way.
Oh my God! At this point, the media should be inviting him to sue them.
Right. So, I know they have to be out there and be careful.
At least.
But what he's saying is, I mean, even Farenthold, I guess I should see what language he's using here. But, saying the Trump Foundation admits this. But keep in mind that there aren't a lot of officers who can speak on behalf of the Trump Foundation. The Trump Foundation is Donald Trump, and the other officers, I know he's got one lawyer on there somewhere, are his kids. So when the Trump Foundation speaks and says it's at the direction of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the one who says, yes, you have to go ahead and admit that you left this out, that you lied, that you broke the self-dealing rules. So he says, yes, President-elect Donald Trump's charitable foundation has apparently admitted to the IRS that it violated a legal prohibition. And I'm sure that Donald Trump didn't sign the letter saying it. It was probably, what's his name, Alan Garten, maybe? I'll skim down. I don't know if it says anywhere who signed the letter. So, I mean, he dispatched somebody else to do that, but he's the president of the foundation. He makes the decisions about what happens at the foundation in a half an hour a week, of course, by the way. So, yeah, there's that. So I remember when...
he's absolutely the responsible person. There's no doubt about that.
Right. I mean, the lawyer doesn't say, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm not going to tell the old man, but I'm going to admit to the IRS. And by the way, is there a safer time for him to admit that he broke the self-dealing rule than when he's about to take the reins as president?
Of course. I mean, this is it. I mean, that's why they're doing it now. Get it out of the way. From that sense, it's shrewd. It's corrupt, but it's shrewd.
Yeah. So there's lots of self-dealing that Farenthold documented, lots of individual instances of the use of the foundation for personal gain. But in addition to which, every dollar that was ever contributed to it by anyone other than Donald Trump, and for the last 6 years, that's been every dollar contributed to it, was illegally solicited because it never had license under New York law to accept or solicit outside donations, including the $1.5 million it said it collected for veterans that time he skipped the debate.
Well, I mean, at this point, the Trump Foundation should just shut down and just pay its fines and do whatever it has to do, and just shut it down in a consent decree. Now, that's not what he's going to want to do. But
no. But unsolicited advice to Palm Beach, Florida.
Yes.
Your settlement with him, he has broken the terms of your settlement agreement with him, and you should consider the flag and code violation in arrears retroactive to 2006.
The flag.
I mean, that's, I know it was a dumb thing, but it actually adds up to a considerable amount of money.
My God, they hound everybody. Oh, your hedges are too high.
Oh, they're very used to that, and the president-elect personally, or I suppose you could collect it from Mar-a-Lago LLC, and it won't make much difference to you, but he's in arrears to you for $4.5 million plus interest. So if I were you, I would collect it. And if you don't want to, I'll do it for $2 million of the 4.5, and you get 4.5, and I'll take the 2. Is that? Well, you're licensed in Florida. You take it. I'm not. So anyway, just bringing that up, and Farenthold was right all along, and but then again, Donald Trump is president. So that's where we stand with that. Good for you, David Farenthold. Great get and great work, and everybody. I don't know anybody that doesn't think he did awesome work there, and I see his name mentioned with Pulitzer all the time.
So, he'll get a Pulitzer.
Good,
and rightly so.
And right, so there was that. By the way, also I will share and at some point probably read down a tweet storm brought to my attention by Kate Sherrill, but specifically about this Buenos Aires development. Apparently, there's another level to it, which will surprise no one. So we'll read about that. You also mentioned the diplomatic breach in asking that, or essentially demanding that Nigel Farage be named ambassador to the United States, which, in addition to being just a general diplomatic breach, is just also a fundamental misunderstanding of the dynamics of British politics.
Well, it's not a question of British politics. I mean, you don't tell the country
right
who they should send as the ambassador.
And he would say, I was merely suggesting, as he would have it. I was just saying many people are saying that, which they're not, but I was just suggesting.
Literally no one had said that. No one. That I had ever. No one thought it was.
I don't think, but.
You have to understand, Farage is not a Tory. He's a UKIP. He's not in the government.
That's one of the other interesting things. Yeah, here in the United States, when he was covered in connection with Trump, or anyway, it was presented here in the United States as though he were a person of importance there. He's a candidate. He's just never won anything. And he's not in government. He's not even like a backbencher MP guy. He's not involved at all in government. So, one, he's not the important figure he's been presented as in the United States. He's an annoyance, and I guess an important annoyance in Britain, but that's it. And as far as becoming ambassador, that's not the way things would work, even if he was an MP, I don't think. But B, he's not one, and you don't say stuff like that. He would, of course, insist that wasn't a demand; that was just a request. But again, it's the sort of thing that ordinarily, if you are if you're involved in American government and you go to briefings about what you're supposed to do in your new job, they would say, "Yeah, you don't do this. You tread lightly with sovereign states." And I don't know. I mean, he doesn't care about what those rules are. But that was only one of two rather major areas in which there was some serious diplomatic breach. The other one that I meant to mention the other day and didn't get to was the little soiree they threw at his D.C. hotel, the Trump International Hotel in the old post office building. For the foreign diplomatic community.
Yeah, rent out a floor of my hotel and I can do favors for you.
He had a party essentially pitching them on, wouldn't it be great if, say, before you and your head of state met with Donald Trump as president-elect or as president later on, wouldn't it be great if one of the things you could, just as a conversation starter, if you first meet, is you could say what a fabulous place the Trump hotels are, because we're staying in one right now. In fact, I rented out a whole floor. I didn't need it, but it was my pleasure to give $10,000 a day to the Trump hotel, which has nothing to do with you, of course, and you are blind to all of that because it's in a blind trust. I didn't pay your kids $10,000 a day and agreed to have a diplomatic function in the ballroom there and serve Trump wine and Trump bottled water and Trump steaks for your sake. I just thought it was that's right. And I appreciated that you put a Trump taco truck in each corner of the ballroom, which was fantastic too, because after all, we are the Spanish delegation, and to you, tacos are probably Spanish food.
That's right.
So that's why we put them there. Thank you very much. It was terrific. But yeah, they put on this. It says here in the Post's description of it, 100 foreign diplomats from Brazil to Turkey, and we haven't heard anything about Turkey's involvement with Donald Trump for at least 20 hours now. They all gathered in the Trump International Hotel this week to sip Trump-branded champagne, dine on sliders, and that's a Trump function for you, champagne and sliders, and hear a sales pitch about the U.S. President-elect's newest hotel, this is probably the third sales pitch we've heard during this campaign alone. The event for the diplomatic community held 1 week after the election was in one of the ballrooms they called the Lincoln Library. I wonder if there's even a book in it, but okay. The Lincoln Library. It's his books, probably. with 16-foot ceilings and velvet drapes that is also available for rent, plus parties, bar mitzvahs, and diplomatic functions, right? Some attendees won raffle prizes. What were the prizes? Among them, overnight stays at other Trump properties around the world. So the prizes don't cost him anything either. I already owned the box of Cracker Jacks. Allowing them to become, of course, better acquainted with the business holdings of the new commander-in-chief. The place was packed, says Lynn Van Fleet, unless that's Flate, I don't know how you pronounce F-L-E-I-T, founder of the nonprofit Diplomacy Matters Institute, which organizes programs for foreign diplomats and government officials, which I guess would be a little bit like ALEC or the Law and Economics Institute for diplomats instead. She said, much of the discussion among Washington-based diplomats is over how are we going to build ties with the new administration? Well, it's easy. What you do is stay at the Trump hotels, play at the Trump golf courses, drink the Trump wine, buy the Trump steaks, and voila, things will become easier for you when you arrive at the White House. And just continuing on a little bit with their reporting here, perhaps nowhere is that possibility more obvious than Trump's newly renovated hotel, a few blocks from the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. By the way, when he becomes president of the United States, becomes both landlord and tenant of that building. He's supposed to be paying $3 million a month in rent to the GSA because it is still a publicly owned landmark building, and we'll see how long that contract lasts when he can negotiate for both sides. Rooms sold out quickly for the inauguration, of course, many for 5-night minimums, priced at 5 times the normal rate, according to the hotel's manager. It should be noted, by the way, here that the regular rate is still about 3 times the going rate for a hotel room anywhere else in town. Now it's pumped up to 5 times rate for inauguration, which that's just uber peak pricing. I can understand that, but how about that? You can't get a better deal in a Trump hotel for the Trump inauguration. You actually get a worse one. Just that's where his mind is. To many of the guests at the reception on Tuesday, accepting an invitation to tour the $212 million hotel, which, by the way, for tax purposes, Trump claims is worth $23 million. He is now suing the District of Columbia to have his taxes lowered. Come and look at my fabulous hotel. How much does it cost? $200 million. Oh, are you a tax collector? It costs $23 million. But here's what they got to check out during the tour. How much for a top level suite there? If a diplomatic visitation decides they'll stay at the Trump hotel, which, by the way, it's now rumored that's where visiting dignitaries will stay instead of Blair House across the street from the White House, which is presumably free to them to stay at. It's a $20,000 a night for those penthouse suites in this hotel. So, you feel like forking over $20,000? I said $10,000 and I was kidding. It was $20,000. They spoke, by the way, admiringly about the renovation and left with a goodie bag of chocolates and a brochure. So the chocolates ought to do it. So that's what you got. It listed the choices of accommodations and meeting rooms in this brochure, expounded on the location's striking prominence, whatever that means, at historical moments such as the Inauguration Day parade. Believe me, all the delegations will go there, said one Middle Eastern diplomat who recently toured the hotel and booked an overseas visitor there. The diplomat said many stayed away from the hotel before the election for fear of Clinton backlash, but now it's the place to be seen. So there you go. I doubt
that. I don't know. What is this coming from?
This is the Washington Post. This is
I don't believe them.
You don't believe what exactly?
I think, for example, talk about the inauguration for a second.
Yeah.
I guarantee you the Trump hotel will be the focal point of protests. You really want to be there?
Well, that's true. I mean, that I see what you mean. Yeah, it will be. And that was a bit, we discussed it a little bit on the show yesterday, that it will be a focal point. Any Trump branded anything will be a focal point for protest, and somebody rightly pointed out possibly terrorist attack as well.
Absolutely. But then, of course, he's going to have the government protect it, so that's more money that's going to cost.
Right. And that leads us to another issue today, which is the other ways that he is apparently now able to siphon dollars out of the government, including, one, the fact that now he will be, of course, when he travels, be traveling on Air Force One, despite the fact that he probably thinks it's worse accommodations for him. And it's not up to his standards. But, of course, his family, when they travel, will continue to travel on his own private planes. But his immediate family will, of course, rightly so, have Secret Service protection. And the Secret Service will have to go with them wherever they go. So while they travel on the Trump airplanes for free, the Secret Service agents who go with them will have to purchase tickets on the plane through DJT Air or whatever it is he calls that subsidiary that he leases his own planes through. During the campaign, of course, anywhere he flew on a Trump airplane, he paid what goes under the name of market rates to buy seats for others who were traveling with him on those planes. And he used, basically those would then be paid for by money contributed to the campaign by people like you and me, except dumber. And that would go straight to his air charter subsidiary, which of course paid him as its president and CEO. So now the Secret Service, who travel with his family, whenever the family members go anywhere, and I believe they'll be doing an awful lot of traveling now, probably more so than ever, because every time they fly somewhere, Donald Trump makes $1 million on plane tickets for Secret Service. And by the way, for the most part, the Secret Service budget, I do not think is widely transparent and widely open to public inspection. There will be almost no clear indication to the American public how much the Secret Service is spending on airplane tickets accompanying any one of his family members. And if Eric goes to Russia and Don Jr. goes to Buenos Aires and Ivanka goes, wherever.
To Dubai.
To Dubai. They got to go all three places. And in other words, the more vacations his kids take, or business trips, whatever, but the more time they spend flying around the world for whatever purpose, the more money it costs the government, but more specifically, the more money Donald Trump makes when they do it. So what will that incentivize? More of it. And that's not the only thing. I also need to add, again, a quite proper decision, or at least not, outwardly outrageous decision. Melania and Barron, his youngest son, will remain in New York at the Trump Tower and not make the White House their main residence. And I don't have any, in a vacuum, no problem with that. You want to live there? Live there. I don't care. I got nothing to say about Barron Trump at this point. No point. Nor Melania, really, except when she makes copied, plagiarized speeches, and then we'll talk about that. But otherwise, they're going to stay in the Trump Tower, and that, too, creates a Secret Service nightmare, beginning with, of course, the fact that anytime Donald Trump himself moves in and out of Trump Tower, the 10-block security radius in Midtown Manhattan has to freeze for an hour. That's going to be quite a scene. But if Melania and Barron remain residents of Trump Tower, the Secret Service is going to have to move into Trump Tower, and they're not going to have them in their unit. The Secret Service is going to have to buy a gigantic, probably, near the penthouse unit inside Trump Tower as a permanent base, and God knows what they're going to have to do. They're going to gut that thing and change the electronics top to bottom for what they need to do, but they're going to have to start paying rent to Donald Trump to guard his wife and son, and that's just I don't know what to tell you about that one. Melania can live wherever she wants.
But he's not taking a salary.
Right. So don't worry about it.
Look how he's saving us money.
He saved us $399,999 a year on that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Now you're costing us $100 million on everything else you're doing in terms of the setup.
And that doesn't even count how much we would be paying anyway to protect them. Which, okay, fine, that's a sunk cost. But moving in and out of Manhattan that often, it's going to cost the New York City government millions upon millions of dollars annually, as well. So that's another. Just in Secret Service billings alone. This is very, very lucrative. This is as good as signing a licensing deal for a new tower in Dubai. And, it's straight from the Treasury. Oh,
it's just unbelievable. I mean, you're telling these stories, and I'm nodding along, and I'm thinking, we've gone through the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, it's not normal. Donald Trump is corrupt AF. So take a look at that. That's just another thing we have to add. I didn't even look yet. At
you didn't talk about one aspect of this, which is really remarkable, is Ivanka being on every freaking call.
Yes. And
she's going to run the blind trust, supposedly.
Yes. I mean, and I think they're inching away from calling it a blind trust these days. I'll give them credit for that. They've stopped calling it that, but he has made it plain. I have no intention either of divesting myself of it or of erecting any kind of a firewall. I'm just going to do this, and you always knew I was going to. That's it. So, yes, Ivanka is on every call. She met with the Japanese Prime Minister the other day and then sent out the fashion alert so you could buy the bangles.
She was on the call with the Argentinian president.
Yes, and that was another interesting... That raised another interesting aspect. In addition to being on the call, there was the fact that we did not find out about that from the American press. The American press was not given access to the call and not given a readout of the call. It was all done behind the scenes. It was the Argentine press who heard from the Argentine president, I guess, and his apparatus, that Ivanka was on the call. And, of course, there would be no reason for her to do that unless, of course, she was checking in on the business status of what's going on. That's where we then get to the story of, oh, by the way, he pressured the Argentine president to lean on the Buenos Aires Municipal Council to approve the paperwork to get his condo units cleared for construction. And, as it turns out, the Argentine president said, his daughter was on the call, and I've known her since infancy, which will not rule out if at some point a sex tape should come out that he might watch it with his wife. I don't know. But just thinking of the Paris Hilton situation with Donald. But maybe the Argentine president is not the same kind of man. I don't know, but it sounds like they're buddies. But, yep, she's on the call. No clearance for her yet. No formal role in the administration for her yet, but one of the top advisors on the executive board of the transition, and supposedly managing his business interests in a way that's supposed to put distance between him and those dealings. How that would go with the two of them on the call, I have no idea. But there's a lot of friendships in the family with the players in this Buenos Aires development, as it happens. I told you about this tweet storm that was brought to my attention. It comes from Susan Simpson.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who I don't know who she is, but she seems to have a real line on this. Maybe she just is personally.
It made sense what she tweeted.
Argentina, sure. And I'll share it with everybody. Just she says right away, apologies in advance. This is going to get long, and it's not that long. But we need to talk about the Trump Tower in Argentina for a second, and there's more than one. But earlier today, it was reported that Trump spoke to Argentine President Macri. Is that
Macri?
Macri during the call, asked about approval for a Trump Tower in Buenos Aires. Then Argentina and Trump said, haha, just kidding, that never happened. This is the other interesting thing. So not only do we not find out about it from the American press, but they denied that it happened when it was first rumored until, the president of Argentina said, yeah, sure it happened. So Argentina and Trump says that, just kidding, that never happened. Media said, cool, no problem. And now it seems as if the story is being dropped, which Susan says here, I hope to God I'm wrong about that this story isn't just being forgotten because Trump's Argentina deal has all kinds of red flags all by itself. I'll add. The backstory, she says, is in 2012, Trump Co. and YY Development Group in Argentina. That's the name of it, YY. Although in Spanish, I don't know. What are they? Is it Y? Is that right? Did
yeah,
they say that twice?
Y.
Did they call it that, or do they call it something else
No,
for
they
short?
probably just call it EE.
EE, okay. Anyway, so for our purposes here in America, YY Development Group in Argentina, they were the partners to build this Trump-branded tower in Uruguay. So that's where it begins, and there's a link to a Spanish-language publication about that, and you're all invited to take a look at that. I'll share the tweet storm with you again in the roundup post. The partners also had future plans to make a Trump tower in Buenos Aires, but they knew they'd have trouble getting lots, and it says imports, etc. So all the paperwork, I guess, that goes with this. Eric Trump went
yeah, you see, Trump wants to use Chinese steel on that project.
Yeah? That import. Okay, yeah. That may be a bigger issue in Argentina, ironically.
It is a bigger issue in Argentina. They're very protectionist.
Well, okay. Eric Trump went to Uruguay a lot to work on this deal and is closely involved with the project. He's also personal friends with the YY development executives. Trump's Argentina partners include, and here are names that don't ring bells to me, but they ring a recognition. Remember, YY Development. Their partners include Yaryura and Yelati, or I guess Yellati, Yellati. Who are those people? I don't really know, except it's accompanied with a photo here that says they were in, quote, the bunker on the night of the election and chilled with Eric Trump. So those, I guess, are the personal names of some, I would imagine, extraordinarily wealthy Argentine citizens who are partners in this thing. So who is YY Development? I guess it's the two people whose names start with Y.
That's probably a good surmise.
I'm a little bit of a detective there. In fact, the next morning after the election, Yayura and how would you say Yellati?
I'd have to see the spelling. I don't have it here.
Yellati.
Say it again.
Yellati, like Yellati.
Yellati.
A little bit of an L there, I guess. Okay.
Had breakfast. No double L, so it would be Yellati.
Okay.
Yellati.
Okay, so Yayura and Yellati had breakfast with Eric the day after the election. So, gee whiz. And there's like a selfie, which I guess one of the two Y folks is taking of himself with Eric in the election headquarters. So that's interesting enough in itself. As it turns out, there's a little bit more. Getting back to Trump Tower in Buenos Aires, around February 2016, YY, the development company, had submitted plans to Buenos Aires seeking approval for the plans. Though as of election day, YY was awaiting the city government's approval to begin the work on this Trump Tower, which is abbreviated TTBA, Trump Tower, Buenos Aires. Susan continues here. Relevant side note, approval for the plans, I guess, comes from Horacio Rodriguez Larreta. He's super close bros with President Macri.
Yep.
Back to election night, where Trump defies the odds and wins the election. He's unexpectedly now president-elect of the United States. President Macri is like, oh, crap, this is awkward because, and I guess she's just saying too long, didn't read here, the TLDR background. He and Trump have a history together that's worthy of a soap opera. Also, Macri had been openly cheering for Clinton's win. So, yeah. Getting in touch with Trump and patching things up becomes priority number one. The Argentine government was very worried and occupied in establishing an urgent link with the tycoon. That's the translation of Spanish language reporting from down in Argentina.
They're offering emoluments, I bet.
I bet they are. President Mauricio Macri asked his entire cabinet, it says here in a quote from the article, entire cabinet for an urgent approach to the team of the president-elect. I imagine that's Susan's translation of the linked article. So we need to find out more about how their background what's in their background.
I know.
Then,
The soap opera sounds interesting.
yes, they find a solution. Someone remembers that Yaryura, developer behind TTBA, has a direct line to Eric Trump. The Argentine government calls Yaryura and explains the situation. On November 11th, Yaryura connects.
It explains they have emoluments to
Yes,
offer.
Chancellor Malcorra, or Malcorra, I don't, it's not accented at the end, but I would have guessed it might be Malcorra, but maybe not. Malcorra connects with Eric Trump, the Chancellor. I'm not sure exactly what position that is down there, but it doesn't sound good.
Sounds Hitlery.
Yeah, a little bit, but okay, they have chancellors. Malcorra and Eric have a cordial chat, but Macri doesn't get to speak to Trump yet. Eric tells Macri he has to wait, which, I mean, it's kind of presumptuous for the kid to say, but he's probably right. He probably should be waiting, and I don't know in what language he put it. He didn't say, "Get to the back of the line, you goddamn."
We're talking to Nigel Farage.
It's not up to me. I can't jump the line. That wouldn't look right. If he does it properly, he's right. He probably should wait. There will be a conversation when Trump's agenda allows it. He has to assemble teams, and we do not hurry, says a Trump official. And I believe that's translated probably 3 or 4 times. That doesn't sound good. On November 14th, Trump's schedule clears, and he and Macri have a chat to catch up on old times about golf games, Miami and New York business deals, I assume, says Susan Simpson. The next day, on the 15th, YY announces construction on Trump Tower Buenos Aires will commence in June 2017. Completion slated for 2020. So, congratulations. And so the day after this phone call between Trump and Macri, arranged by Yaryura, who hung out with Eric Trump in the bunker that night of the election, Trump Tower moves ahead as if all approvals have been obtained. But there's a problem with this phantom tower, as she writes it, puts it in bunny ears quotes. There doesn't appear to be any paperwork that's actually been submitted for it.
That's mere formality.
So, yeah, we approved something, we just don't know what it is. No biggie. Despite no permit filings, let alone approvals, YY insists everything is in order for Trump Tower Buenos Aires, full speed ahead. Then, this morning, someone reads an Argentine news source and reports on this. Macri called Trump and asked for them to authorize the building. That is, asked, I guess, Macri for Trump to authorize, or Macri to authorize the building Trump is constructing in Buenos Aires. There is a 1-hour period in which the U.S. media toys with the possibility that Trump may have been using his office for personal gain.
May.
Then the media says, oh, never mind. That was just another example of the easy spread of thinly sourced or maybe even fake news. That's what, yeah. So our Washington Post piece here quoted Argentina denies news report that Trump sought personal favors. And this is why I'm writing 5 million tweets, Susan explains, because I don't want this forgotten like everything else about Trump always seems to be. A foreign president used a U.S. president's business partner to contact him, and that business partner was in need of government approval on a pending project. So recap. 1, Trump and YY Development want to build Trump Tower in Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires does not approve the permits. 2, Trump becomes president. 3, President Macri goes, oh crap, this is bad. Someone please get me the president-elect on the phone now. 4, someone goes, hey, Yaryura from that Trump Tower thing has Eric Trump's personal number. 5, Yaryura connects an Argentine official with Eric Trump. 6, Eric Trump says, hey, my dad is so busy right now, but we'll get back to you. 7, 3 days later, Macri and Trump speak on the phone, make polite chit-chat. 8, YY Development announces it'll be breaking ground from Buenos Aires in June 2017. Trump Tower Buenos Aires will get built. Yay, team. And a photo, I guess, of Y and Y with Donald Trump, hand in hand for a celebratory photo accompanies the piece. Last thing she says, Yaryura doesn't deny that he was the conduit, with, again, a link to the Argentine press here. When asked about whether the Argentine government had contacted him to mediate between Trump and Macri, Yaryura said, the perception I have is that Argentina will always do well if it's close to the United States, more than if it's a distant relationship. And did he help out? Yeah, just won't deny it. So I guess he did.
Can I bring your attention back to the emoluments clause and the very important memo that was written in the transition period for then President-elect Obama? Mm-hmm. The issue at that point was the Nobel Peace Prize, believe it or not, which carries with it a monetary prize.
Right. And
the analysis by David Barron, now a First Circuit Appellate Court judge, but someone who is somewhat controversial on the torture and ethics issue that came out of the Justice Department in the mid-2000s. But his conclusion was the Emoluments Clause does apply to the president.
Yeah.
Number one. So the issue was the body giving the emolument, in this case the Nobel Prize Committee, independent of a foreign government? And Barron's conclusion was that it was because of the way that committee is formed, even though I believe has some connections to the Norwegian legislature. I believe it's Norwegian, not Swedish, but you know what? You could correct me on that one. But at any rate, the point was that it was Barron determined it was independent, ergo
the Peace Prize might be Swedish, but okay.
Ergo, Obama could accept it and the compensation because it wasn't from a quote foreign government. Now, understand what happened here. Obama didn't offer anything to Norway in exchange for this. This was an independent act by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. A stupid one, in my view, at the time, as I expressed it, but nonetheless, it was not something Obama said, hey, I'll give you guys some fishing rights if you give me the Peace Prize. No one thinks that happened.
I mean, I don't doubt that that's possible. It's just no one alleged it at this point. I mean,
my point is, I don't think Obama thought it out. In fact, I think it did him some harm at the time. It looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, here's the point. It doesn't matter if you seek it. You can't accept it if it's from a foreign government.
Yeah.
There's no doubt, none, that Trump Tower Buenos Aires requires permitting from some aspect of the Argentine government, be it the local Buenos Aires municipal government or some national agency that handles these things for Argentina. He can't accept it according to the Emoluments Clause and according to the analysis by David Barron. Why? Because you cannot argue that those are independent of the foreign government. They are the foreign government.
Yeah.
That's who's giving you the permit. This violates the Emoluments Clause. Trump Tower Buenos Aires, any way you cut it, whether he asked for it, whether there was some favors asked for, whether whatever spurred it, it violates the Emoluments Clause. Donald Trump has to not be a part of that project if he is not going to violate the Constitution. Unless there's one saving clause there, though. And it's worth considering. If Congress consents.
Yes.
The Congress can't approve all this corruption.
That is
by
true.
An act of law.
And they might as well get started now.
Yes.
That's what they're going to be called on to do for the next couple of years. And I have no doubt that they would permit it either.
But they have to expressly permit it.
Yes, and that's fine. Make it go on the record.
Pass a resolution on it, and it needs to be passed by both houses. Now, whether the president himself has to sign it, I don't know. I would argue it doesn't, because consent of Congress does.
No,
in the legislative field, definitely requires a president's signature. That's part of our process, or a veto override.
Yeah.
But I don't know that consent here would require the president to act. But the Congress has to affirmatively act to approve this. Otherwise, it violates the Constitution.
Yes.
So while everyone's talking about the corruption, I think that's fair. I think the other aspect of it is it's just a black letter violation of the Emoluments Clause. The president of the United States can't get permitting from a foreign government for a project of his. It's not permitted.
Right. And that's that. But
that's that unless Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell decide to enact a resolution saying it's okay. You can do whatever you want, President Trump.
Yeah, and they'll be called on to do that. By the way, I guess the mechanics of it would likely be a resolution would probably do it as long as it was a joint resolution of both houses. They could, of course, legislate on the issue and say either it doesn't apply to presidents or that they could.
They can't legislate the Constitution. You have to pass an amendment.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but they may be able to say, for instance, construct something such that I don't even know how you would word it, but business proceeds on and it could be aimed directly at Trump. Or they could take the position this Spencer Tillman or whatever his name is coming up with that somehow the Emoluments Clause does not apply to the president. Yeah, I mean,
which makes absolutely no sense because if you exclude the president, what's the point of the darn clause?
No, and it would invite all kinds of litigation. The smarter answer, the more efficient answer for the Congress would be to say, we can just pass a resolution that just doesn't require the president's signature. Take it out of his hands. That's probably best for him. If we want to approve it, and I don't know why you would want to, except unless it's part of one of those weird part of the Bannon-type strategy of let's just create so much chaos, confusion, and outrage about as many things as possible that no one's able to focus on any one thing. But that'll be difficult to talk the Congress into.
I don't know what's going to be difficult to talk to.
But the resolution is the easiest way to do it. I only hold out legislation as a possibility because if you're doing one of these backwards ass strategies where you say the more confusion, litigation, and chaos, the better, then I would say, sure, pass legislation because it'll end up in court and probably be invalidated. But, I mean, imagine the fun we'll have if it's invalid. Well, no matter what the outcome, this thing will stretch it out forever. In the meantime, you can draw all the money from it that you want, and as it works its way through the courts. And if it's overturned, then we go back to the legislature and try to narrow it and start the process over again. If it's upheld because you've named a fifth justice to the conservative wing of the Supreme Court and they rubber stamp your collecting emoluments with the approval of Congress via legislation, so much the better. Terrific. We've changed the understanding of the Emoluments Clause, and we're not going to have a problem again from here on in unless we feel like creating one.
Okay.
So I don't know. I can't predict what mechanism they're going to use, although I assume that at first they'll say at first impression, I imagine Congress says we don't want anything to do with this, and we don't know. We don't even recognize it as an emolument.
Let's see if the media even decides it's an issue. I mean, it made page one of the Times today. That's good, but what happens next week? That's the whole problem with Trump stories.
Yeah.
They last a day. The media said, "Well, I did my job. I wrote one story on it."
Yeah.
Of course, that's not true for emails or Clinton Foundation, but I think that's what they always do. I just want to shift gears on you for final 5 minutes here because there's a lot of Dems and disarray stories that we could touch on, but I want to keep this one Trump related, which is
we have to.
Do you work with Trump?
Oh, me no, but where are you going? Tulsi Gabbard?
I mean, as a serious discussion point, what is the upside of working with Trump? What's the downside?
What
do you get out of working with him?
I don't know. Different things. There's certainly a lot of weird. There's a lot of suggestions people are making. They're out there. We'll acknowledge. There are Democrats saying, "Well, I have many, many, many areas of disagreement," which is putting about the best gloss on it. You can't, like, for instance, I hate Nazis. That's something we disagree about. I don't want to.
I'm actually curious what the agreements are.
But areas of, let's see. This morning there was a piece from what's his name over in the Hill, one of the Democratic pundits that they regularly publish over there, but I can't remember which one it was and what his name is, but saying the infrastructure projects, why they could create millions of jobs, and we
have you looked at this plan for the infrastructure projects?
I have looked at other people's reviews of them, and you
don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
And even Bernie Sanders said that yesterday.
As usual, there's different spins put on it, and I can't imagine that Donald Trump.
It's supply side infrastructure spending.
Yeah. Okay.
It's I'm gonna give you a tax credit or a grant so that you can privately own this bridge.
Okay, that sounds terrific. No.
It sounds horrific.
It's not a
course.
Public infrastructure
and
project.
it is
it's
horrific.
Tax credits for private infrastructure.
So if that's the one you want to work with him on, count me out.
I don't know. Yeah, that's
else?
What they got. I don't know exactly. I mean, if you're Tulsi Gabbard, apparently she's found something.
Yeah, the pro-Russia and Syria position.
Yeah.
If that's the Democrats' position, well, then I'm out of step with the Democrats.
Yes.
I actually don't agree
didn't
agree with intervening in Syria. But
Yeah.
I certainly don't agree with the idea that we're going to support Assad and Putin in Syria. Tulsi Gabbard is pro-Russia and pro-Assad.
Yeah.
I am anti-both, but I understand that I think that our military involvement in Syria is not particularly wise. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
And by the way, Tulsi Gabbard is not going to decide anything for Donald Trump. Donald Trump will not be listening to her. Luckily for Tulsi Gabbard, there's a madman named Michael Flynn who will probably have Trump's ear and will repeat all he says. Now, unfortunately for Tulsi Gabbard's position,
Yes.
Michael Flynn wants war with Iran. So what does she want to do about that?
Not do it.
You want to work with him on his Iran war?
Yeah, no. Yes. Maybe no. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's nonsense to even try and parse this.
There literally is no positive to working with Trump, is what I'm saying. There's nothing that you're going to be able to work with him on.
No, but again, the flattery appears to work for Tulsi Gabbard. This is interesting. The Hill's reporting on it has just this blind quote. He loves Tulsi Gabbard, loves her. A source familiar with the Trump advisors' thinking told The Hill. She gets the foreign policy stuff, the Islamic terrorism stuff. Another outlet reported that same quote
if you're pro-Muslim
directly to Steve
registry,
Bannon,
you can
by
work
the way.
with him on that too.
Yes. Well, she is. There's a number of ways.
She is pro-Muslim registry. Don't kid yourself. That's who Tulsi Gabbard is.
That's what she says. She was one of her major points of departure with the Obama administration. It notes in here, refusing to say the words radical Islam, because that's important that you say it. And if you say it, ISIS fighters melt like the Wicked Witch of the West if you throw water on her.
I mean, let's put it plainly. Tulsi Gabbard is an offensive idiot. And I don't want to have anything to do with her anyway. But if you enjoy Tulsi Gabbard and think that she's great, well, more power to you and Trump.
Well, when it was, hey, she surfs, that was cool. When it was, hey, she's for Muslim registries, oh, well, that's not as cool. All right,
so
Kanye
outside
West
of Tulsi Gabbard, what is Schumer thinking about? What's he going to work with him on? I mean, they say infrastructure. I keep hearing that. But his infrastructure plan is not an infrastructure plan.
If there's anybody more difficult to read from outside than Donald Trump, I would say it might be Chuck Schumer.
That's
I don't know.
fair.
I can't tell you what he means.
But I still don't see what's in it for him. Listen.
Yeah.
There's no upside to this.
He may mean nothing, and it may be. Schumer is the kind of, again, I can't read him, so I don't know. I could be entirely wrong, but he's definitely strikes me as the kind of person who would look at this situation and say, look, I know where my base is. They don't want me having anything to do with Donald Trump. That's true. But on the other hand, as...
Yeah, what's the other hand? This is the part I would
floor
like
leader
to hear,
of the Democrats. This is just like, this is pro forma stuff. This is what you say in a normal situation, which this isn't. As leader of the minority of the Senate, you say, where there's issues of commonality, we'll be happy to work with the
That's
president.
what you normally say. It's true. It is what you normally say.
Yes. And
my entire premise is
right.
Donald Trump is not normal.
Right. Well, that's true.
And that's why you don't do the normal thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think people in positions of tremendous responsibility high up in government feel still great pressure to, if not normalize Trump, they probably don't want to normalize Trump necessarily, but they do everything they know about how to operate in government requires a
Throw
normal
out that
environment.
book.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Throw out that book.
So they
First of
try
all,
to bring it back to
David,
that.
Democrats will have no say in anything. The filibuster is going to get nuked.
Very likely.
Everything's going to be party line votes. You will have no say in legislation. Republicans don't operate like Democrats do. No. They don't look for buy-in from Democrats. They say, this is what it is. If they have the votes, they say, this is what it is. You can vote for it or vote against it. We don't really give a crap what you do.
Yes.
Look, you've said this a million times about constitutional hardball. Your whole plan about this whole, let's put in our ninth Supreme Court justice on that day, on January 3rd. Yeah. That's what a Republican would do. You know they would.
Yes.
Look at McCrory in North Carolina. That's what they do.
Thank you for bringing that up as well. Something else we've ignored to this point. We'll give you the background stories on that, but not right now. Let me let you continue your.
Well, because I'm gonna hand you back your show. But what I'm talking about is
I'm not ready for that. Okay.
We're not like them. I get that, and we don't want to be like them, and yada yada. Fine, I can sort of live with sort of that kind of rhetoric. Mm-hmm. But Donald Trump is different. This is not normal. This is not the time to pretend the game is the same. Yes. There's no upside to it. First of all, it's going to be a disaster. He's going to be a disastrous president. The country's going to suffer for it. You want to be able to blame the other side when you go to the elections in 2018. Yeah. That requires unwavering opposition to everything he does. He's not going to do anything you're going to support. So that should be easy. But don't pretend at the beginning that he's normal. It's bad. It's a bad strategy. Schumer, this is uncharted waters. I get he doesn't know what to do, but it's time to start thinking about it.
Yeah. And ordinarily, that's a good placeholder. You give that non-committal. Well, where there's areas of commonality, I'm sure we'll work together. I'm a reasonable guy, even if he isn't, and blah, blah, blah. And then everybody says, don't normalize him. And that's an easy enough thing to back off of and say, well, I guess what? There was no areas of commonality. But, yeah, Schumer's operating out of the old
He's going to come out, they're going to make a proposal, you're going to say it's unacceptable, and then what?
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing.
I actually just think that you really just need to say that he's not acceptable now. Look what, because of his campaign, because of what he's doing, because of his conflicts, because of his boorishness, because of his stupidity, because of his instability, because of his ignorance, because of his temperament, he is an unacceptable president. We accept him by the process, but we don't. And if he gets the votes and he signs the laws, they're law. But that doesn't mean we have to play along with it. That is what I'm saying. I said, listen, no one's questioning that he's going to be the next president. We're questioning that he should be the next president. He shouldn't be. The American people think otherwise. That's their prerogative. They voted, and he will be sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on January 20th, or unless he's in Trump Tower. But that doesn't mean we agree that that's right. It's not right. It's wrong. The American people failed. They can't say it, but you and I can say it. There was a mistake. He was duped. The American people have been duped, if you want to say that. Whatever framing has worked for you, but accepting him and treating him as normal, no. That for me is unacceptable. Anyway, I'm going to go now and let you rant and rave a little bit on your issues. And I thank you for letting me spend this morning doing that.
Well, thank you for coming by. That helped us, I think, move between a number of different issues, which I ordinarily would have wasted too much time reading the articles and complaining about each sentence.
Yeah, well, you know me. I'm a whiner.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Have a good one.
You do the same. And, enjoy our little Thanksgiving break there, too. Okay, so where was I? The North Carolina situation. Another good reason to play hardball with the Supreme Court come January 3rd, or at least to threaten and organize and get ready to do that and give Republicans in the Senate the opportunity to ask for some kind of deal as a reprieve for that. What is happening in North Carolina? I got a couple of pieces on it, and I think the most recent I actually grabbed was from The Hill, which is, not a favorite, but a frequent stop for us. North Carolina governor, voter fraud, he says, swung the election against me. Here's what's happening. Extraordinarily close election in North Carolina for governor. Pat McCrory and his bathroom bill faced withering attack across the state, enormous backlash against the loss of business because of his reactionary policies. And he lost. The count having neared completion there, it's close but convincing, and he lost. That's it. And Attorney General Roy Cooper, the Democrat in the race, has got the lead. Okay, so there's mechanisms, of course, as with any election, for challenging all of this. McCrory, though, has just about exhausted all of them. He's called for all kinds of recounts and audits and any challenge that was available to him legally. He has taken, and in the main, they have failed. Courts have rejected his seeking court orders to reopen recounts or to invalidate results. Everywhere he's turned so far has basically said there's nothing we can do to help you, including occasionally Republican-controlled election boards simply saying your complaint we have reviewed and it is without merit. Our numbers now stand. And now he's pulling out the ultimate threat here, the ultimate in constitutional, I guess state constitutional, hardball going on there. He's basically now planning to go to the Republican-controlled legislature and say, I need you to invoke the authority vested in you by state law and state constitution to declare this to be a disputed election. And that's kind of the magic words here. There's no dispute. Everybody else involved in the process says, I'm sorry, but you've lost. There is no dispute. Pat McCrory says, well, I dispute it. And so that makes it a disputed election. And it's very clear in North Carolina, disputed elections are decided by the state legislature. And, well, gee whiz, you're all Republicans. And wouldn't it be great if you decided that the answer to the disputed election was, no, Pat McCrory wins. And he's now bolstering his case by claiming voter fraud. Once again, back in the news, derailed his election campaign. This according to The Hill. Writer here, Mark Hench, just to give proper credit. McCrory alleges that voter fraud in 50 of North Carolina's 100 counties boosted State Attorney General Roy Cooper to a slim lead in the undecided gubernatorial race. The News and Observer reported that Cooper leads McCrory by less than 1% 2 weeks after Election Day. McCrory has not conceded the race and is insisting that dead people, felons, and individuals who voted in other states cast ballots in North Carolina. Why is Roy Cooper, he says, so insistent on circumventing the electoral process and counting the votes of dead people and felons? Ricky Diaz, actually, a McCrory campaign spokesperson responsible for that statement. It may be because he needs those fraudulent votes to win. Instead of insulting North Carolina voters, we intend to let the process work as it should to ensure that every legal vote is counted properly. Except that the legal process has been invoked and has worked, and he has lost all of his appeals. So instead, he seeks to go to the Republican-controlled state legislature and have them declare on party line vote, essentially by fiat, that he's the governor despite having lost the vote. This is what they plan to do there. Now, keeping in mind, in the background of all this, and I guess as chiefly, perhaps a major cause of all of this, the cause of it being as close as it is of course Republican voter fraud in the form of voter suppression, which we discussed at length and all of you know about already. But North Carolina has been the vicious battleground for voter suppression law for a long time. Remember that this was the set of voter suppression laws overturned by the courts as facially discriminatory, thanks to, of course, uncovering emails among the players behind the legislation explicitly saying we are doing this because it makes it harder for black people to vote, and black people vote Democratic. That's what we're doing it for. Caught red-handed, the law was overturned. The state legislature now will overturn the vote and reinstall the governor who drove most of this process just in time for Donald Trump to take office and install his own people, possibly on the Supreme Court, of course, and almost certainly in the Department of Justice, the very people who will be able to give the stamp of approval that will keep most federal courts out of and away from making a decision about what went on in North Carolina vis-a-vis the voting and voter restriction laws. They will end up reinstating those same laws and getting approval for them if there's a 5-member conservative majority on the Supreme Court. So, once again, back to January 3rd. Democrats, Senate Democrats in particular, should we play hardball? Should we do the unique and out-of-the-box thing that I have proposed? Wouldn't it be a total disruption of democratic norms? Yes, it would. And so is North Carolina. What's your answer to North Carolina? Is it the responsibility of the Senate of the United States to respond to what's going on in the legislature of North Carolina? Maybe, maybe not. But that alone should be a signal to you that Republicans are not going to treat things normally, and you are released from your obligation, if there ever was one, for doing the same. But in addition to that, I think you should also probably regard the maneuver I have prescribed for January 3rd properly this way. Not as an unparalleled and out-of-the-box escalation of the situation, but rather a measured, believe it or not, and proper response to the improper escalation already perpetrated by Republicans in the Senate, laying a 1-year-long roadblock in front of the properly nominated and highly qualified Chief Judge of the D.C. Court of Appeals, Merrick Garland. Everybody knows that this is a Supreme Court seat that belonged essentially to Obama. It was Obama's right and responsibility to fill it. Everybody knows how long this nomination has been blocked. And also, everybody knows, I think, probably from our experience with the nuclear option, dun, 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 that generally speaking, the backlash that Republicans promised was coming, both from them and the American public, never really materialized. It certainly wasn't a major issue on the minds of Donald Trump voters. They probably couldn't tell you what happened, when it happened, what the result was, etc. But it's time to take that into consideration, given that Republicans, we always say, well, they would in a minute, in a heartbeat. Well, they're doing it right now in front of your very eyes, and on the very battleground wherein the federal courts said, you are absolutely 100% wrong. What you've done here is facially discriminatory and unconstitutional. And yet they went ahead and did it anyway, and when they still couldn't get the results they want, they'll simply declare it reversed. Now, of course, is your chance to simply declare the results that Republicans wanted with respect to the SCOTUS reversed. I say, take your shot and do it. I wanted to deliver that last message. I'm sorry that I shortchanged the guys over at the after show. We'll try and squeeze in a little bit about what's coming up, but you know, it's all the good stuff we may have missed.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
All right, I said I would squeeze something in. Probably the biggest story that we missed today that they'll pick up on the after show. If the decision stands, a federal court's ruling that Republican maps are unconstitutional, this time in Wisconsin, could be the beginning of the end of gerrymandering. Do stay tuned for all of that and more coming up on the after show with Wink and Justice next.